Hi, this is Miss Safi here. Thank you so much for joining me today. This lesson will be just a very brief overview of historical fiction in preparation for the readings that you'll be doing. So we will go over rather simply what is historical fiction, and then we'll look a little bit at some information about Nikola Tesla, who you'll be reading about. So, historical fiction, what is it? Well, it is definitely a form of fiction, stories that are made up. It's based on historical events. It has an authentic setting, so it's not going to be a fictional place like the world of Harry Potter, for example. It will be a real place that's existed in the past or exists still. Some characters may be actual people from history, but the story is fictional. So some element of it will be fictional, whether this characters or the story. Characters are portrayed in a realistic manner, and sometimes there may be actual people from history, and then some friends or acquaintances or secondary characters may be fictional. There's going to be an artistic mix of fiction and historical fact, and your job is to try to decipher between the two. So what is historical fiction? Well, it's a type of story that contains facts about real people, places, and events, but also contains fictional elements that add dramatic interest to the story. That's just what we discussed on the previous slide there with those circles. So what are some examples of historical fiction that you have read? I know some students who are history buffs are really into historical fiction. So is a screen with some examples. Maybe you're familiar with these books or you've read different examples of historical fiction. So continuing on our discussion of the elements of historical fiction, it is a form of fiction, as we said. It's based on historical events with authentic settings. The characters are portrayed in realistic manner. Some characters may be actual people from history, but the story is fictional, and there's an artistic mix of fiction and historical fact in there. That's really all there is to it. For the most part, you're going to be applying your knowledge of fiction reading. The same applies in terms of plot, setting, characterization. All those still apply in this genre too. The main thing you want to know is that this sort of fiction is based on actual historical events or people. So let's look at just a couple of quick questions regarding this genre. So how far in the past must a story be set to qualify as historical fiction? What do you think? 100 years, 25 years, 50 years, or it doesn't matter? If you said it doesn't matter, you are correct. One more. More often than not, characters in historical fiction are real historical figures, based on myths and legends, ordinary people, or based on the author's ancestors. What do you think? If you chose real historical figures, you are correct. And it's as simple as that. So one of the people you will be reading about in this particular section in this unit is Nikola Tesla, one of the inventors, and this is a photograph of him taken around 1890 when he was about 34 years old. And in 2013, I believe it was his 153rd or 157th birthday, and in honor of that, they had published on their website 8 things that you didn't know about Nikola Tesla. So I'm just going to give you the highlights, the titles of those 8 things, and if you want to know more about them, you could always go to the pbs.org website and look up the full details. So 8 things you didn't know about him. 1, he was born during a lightning storm, and in fact the midwife who was delivering him had apparently heard the lightning storm outside and told his mom that this child would be a child of darkness, and the mother said, no, my child will be a child of light. Number 2, he was apparently a very funny person. Number 3, he and Thomas Edison were rivals, but not sworn enemies. Interestingly, at one point, Tesla worked for Thomas Edison, but then he broke away to go and pursue his own projects, and The two were, combative in the sense that they were competition with their ideas, but they were also very respectful of each other. Some say that he developed the idea for the smartphone technology in 1901. He sent Mark Twain to the bathroom. So history has it that Mark Twain, the famous writer, had a lot of digestive problems, and one invention that Tesla had made basically shook the ground. And so he brought Mark Twain over and stood him on the platform where his invention was. And when he turned it on, after about 90 seconds of being on it, Mark Twain had to run to the bathroom. So that's what they say, at least. He had very famous friends, especially for a scientist. Pearls drove him crazy. Sorry about that little typo there. There should be a space right there. So even if his secretary, for example, wore pearls to work, he'd send her home for the day. No one really knows why, but anyone wearing pearls would just absolutely drive him crazy. He didn't like it. And then finally, he had a photographic memory and a fear of germs. Maybe that makes sense with his scientific persona, but there you go. There are 8 things about Tesla you may not have. All right, so just a quick recap. We really discussed what is historical fiction, and then we looked at some information about Tesla. I do hope that you enjoy looking at the stories in this section, and as always, please do reach out if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. Thank you.